So, like, now Nasan has to solo Demon Slayer, right? What's up, guys? I'm Hunter here, and we're going to do a breakdown and review to chapter 150, the big 150 of Four Knights of the Apocalypse, which is known as Hope for the Next Generation. And ladies and gentlemen, I gotta say, this chapter on multiple different levels is multiple different types of straight gas. So we have a whole bunch to talk about, but so little time. So let's not waste any more time and let's hop right into it. Heading me, are you ready? 3, 2, 1, go. Hey, what's up, guys? The ow. That guy with a pencil here. Sorry. If I ever go ow randomly during this video, for some reason my left shoulder just it's genuinely tweaked. I have no idea why. And like, as you know, I'm very expressive with my hands. So like, the owls will try to be suppressed, but I can only do so much. What's up, guys? That guy with a pencil here. Fun fact, I do happen to have it on me and keep it on me at all times. And another fun fact, Nasan. I hate to say it, but their pronouns are they, because they are not one of them. Look at my goat, bro. Look at my goat. I made that poll as pure setup. Who's the strongest of the Percival platoon side crew? Obviously, I do think this is going to be somewhat temporary. I don't believe Nas. I mean, maybe. I mean, I wouldn't be mad. But like, presumably, this is going to be a temporary situation. I highly doubt Nasan is going to contain and get complete control over the Spirit Spear forever. Because like, that'd be a little bit too much. that'd be a little bit too much, wouldn't it? And also, it would probably completely lock him off from Camelot. Maybe. Once again, we're yet to see on whether or not the hybrid situation for Nasan makes the Camelot barrier confused and like it will let them in anyway, or if the Camelot barrier is like, dude, you are two types of non-human. We are definitely not letting you in here. So that's the thing. That's the big scary thing about Nasan's, this reveal, this entire little arc. All this is cool, and being Nasan to the moon is cool. All that's fantastic. They may not be allowed where the main plot's going to take place. Maybe none of the Cayenne kids are. And that scares me, because I like all the Cayenne kids, except for Pow. And kind of Tiori. But especially Pow. So like, I'm genuinely a little bit worried. But them having any control of the Spirit Spear at all is very, 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 very juicy. I'm excited. And notably, I'm going to put a pre-pause on this one, because they're Limit Steve and me. Note the change in the tip, y'all. Note the change in the tip. That thing ain't sharp no more. It's got some nubs on it. I will regret. One day I'll wake up and I'll realize, oh no. I'll know what I've done. But with that being the case, pause all over that. But note the change in the tip. This will be relevant for later. But when we see that Tiori is absolutely biggity bamboozled, she's like, Nasi, you can stop the Spirit Spear? Which is kind of crazy. Like, notably, y'all gotta remember, this isn't just any Spirit Spear. This is the true Spirit Spear. Remember, back in, like, early 7deadlysins, like, around the early 100s, like, we got sight of the true Spirit Spear, quote-unquote, but that was just, like, the second stage of it. That was King drawing out the upper limits of his power, and as far as he could push the spear at the time. This is the truest Spirit Spear. This is the spear that Full Wings King was wielding. The spear that, when split down to 1/4 of its efficacy, 1/4 of it, was absolutely body-bagging for Commandment Mael. Remember that. Nasan's able to stop, control, and do something crazy with this spear. Now, I shouldn't need to explain to you how absolutely stupidly broken and powerful in terms of just raw stats for Commandment Mael was. And Nasan can now control this. And I'll talk about control too, because we see Myrtle ask, What are you? Which is a pretty appropriate question. Like, honestly, I'm kind of, like, notably, I'm shocked they haven't put the pieces together, but I guess they just wouldn't think it. They wouldn't think it. But, like, they should know. They should, like, Myrtle, like, dog, you just had a whole character arc about this, Mikey. we just saved you from Chaos Juice. Because you realize that it's okay, even if you weren't the real kid, and you know the real kid's here. Like, come on. You know exactly what this is. It's the true heir to the Fairy King's throne. But with it being the case, we get this beautiful color page from Nakaba. One of the rare times, and notably, I get on Nakaba's case for using this like type of yellow. It always reminds me of like, you know exactly what it reminds me of. But with it being the case, I actually really like it here, and I like this little color page. It once again, it goes to show that Nakaba, he's a demon with the pen. He's not Horikoshi, because few men are Horikoshi. He's not Murata, because few men are Murata, if any men are Murata. He's not. I feel so bad. I always reference the Record of Ragnarok artists, but I never remember their names, because there are two of them in particular. There are two who like do the art for the manga, but they're not. This isn't the Record of Writer, but still. The fact that the man does this weekly, all by himself, is crazy. The visualization of color, the designs here are neat. I like that Nasians, now that they fully awakened to their fairy side, at least to some certain degree, their hair color now matches their siblings, and by proxy, their fathers. I do like how this is specifically what the chapter title is, Hope for the Next Generation. It's all of King's kids here. From the adopted one in Myrtle, who waves down to his siblings, to Zillion, Zana, Pow. Then Nasians, Belt, Sixtus, and Tiore. It's a nice thing. But once again, this really comes down to the fact that I don't know. If Nakaba's feeling generous, all these kids, and I mean all of them, not just Myrtle, because Myrtle's the only human, all these kids could end up being relevant to the plot by literally just having it be explained. Like a lot of people have theorized in the comments, maybe the barrier, by like, it's kind of like, it works like a JJK binding vow scenario, where it won't let in non-humans, but specifically purebred non-humans. Like, it lets people like Tristan and Lance in because they at least have sun human in them, but maybe it's just the hybrid factor at all that confuses the barrier. So maybe Nasians gets to be relevant, maybe Tiore gets to be relevant, maybe Sixtus, Belt, Pow, yes, even Pow, Zana, Zillion, maybe they can all still be relevant. But at the same time, I could see Nakaba gatekeeping. Like, I could straight up see Nakaba gatekeeping them, which is crazy, because I like almost all their designs, except for Pow's, of course. And I think their abilities could be cool, and they could act as like a cool B squad, especially considering how powerful Nasians has become. If he does get any sort of permanent access to the Spirit Spear, he could literally lead a whole family squad of his own into a Camelot invasion. Especially since we know now, like, the crew is doing invasions on their own. Tristan may be captured, though. But Lance can obviously run on his own, run solo. Percival can obviously, whenever he reincarnates, he can run on his own, run solo. We see Donnie and Anne dive in and out on solo. So Nasians could even lead his whole family on this little expedition. So there's so much potential for this group that I'm really hoping they don't just get gatekept from Camelot. But I don't know. It'd be. I'll admit though, the reason I'm confident that hybrid confuse the barrier kind of thing may be a thing is because it would be so weird to put all this emphasis and all this time into this family and then just explain they can't do anything. At least relevant to Camelot. They can obviously still be like here for cutbacks to the main world. Maybe Nasians will start traveling again, trying to help defend the different locations and stuff like that. We can still get that, but you know what I really want to see. I want to see this squad pulling Camelot. But of course, let's hop into the chapter itself. We open up and we do get to see that Worldane is like, my apologies. I was not familiar with your game. What is that kid then? A mere boy like him can stop a spirit spear? Like, one of my favorite things about Worldane so far. I don't know, maybe this will change, but it seems like they're here to stay. Even with what this chapter ends with, I'm confident Worldane is now just a permanent addition to the plot, which makes me super duper happy. But I love how Worldane does not get angry, does not get mad, does not get bamboo, doesn't have any sort of like explicitly negative reactions to phenomena beyond their control or beyond their expectation. They're always just intrigued. They're like, whoa, hold on a second. I didn't know you could do that. What is this? What is that? Like, they're genuinely excited to see and experience these new things rather than being terrified of them. Like, notably, Ironside, when something went beyond his expectations, when Bond blew his back out, he was like, oh no! Like, that was basically Ironside's reaction. And we see Pelgard also has this sort of similar mentality where he's like, oh, shoot, I know you were built like this for real. And that's my favorite kind of reaction. I love when characters are more so intrigued with the world about them, even in a combat sense, rather than just being terrified of things they don't understand. Ironside. But with it being the case, we see that King is like, don't talk smack about my baby! As he says, that's not some mere boy at all. He's my child! And that's... my heart. Once again, he comes from me being a reader of Sevendeadlysins. And admittedly, I started reading the manga around the time season 1 of the anime came out on Netflix. So I believe, like, I think I was there. I forget exactly, but I think I was, like, right before, I was in, like, the 170s, about the time I started reading the manga. And when that, man, I've been with King for a minute now. And to see him happily claim his child, bro, makes a grown man cry, guys. Makes a grown man cry. I ain't crying, though. This is no time to cry. But with that being the case, we see Nasan to the Hiya! And launches the spirit spear back. And once again, this is very impressive. Notably, it's shown in the last chapter, and we'll see further in this chapter, that manipulating the spirit spear at all takes massive, and I mean massive amounts of magical energy. Like, to the point where King, who's had a majority of his magical force sealed off, is struggling to wield it at all. So the fact that Nasan is going to be revealed to do not just this, in terms of redirecting the Spirit Spear, and redirecting it in a big, massive way, launching it off at like Mach 57, but also is later revealed to enchant it with their own magic. Nasan's magic pool, I'm not sure if this is an awakening, or if they just always had this deep of a pool. It's really big. And realize, well, we don't know, like, just like we don't know if Lancelot will end up developing wings, we don't know if Nasan's will, but if Nasan's is, like, in his, like, season 1 King arc, where he has no wings at all, or they have no wings at all, and they're going to grow, and they're going to develop, and later on, we're going to see progression of Nasan's getting the baby wings, and then maybe a middle stage wings, like his father, like their father's currently at, and then the full wings, like, Nasan's, the potential's boundless. The potential is boundless. And they basically already have a bootleg disaster. Like, and who knows, maybe they just do have disaster. But no. I think Poison Mixer, while it may not be the most apt of names, it's something different than Disaster innately. But still, we see Poison Mixer is very, very valid. So Nasan's reels back, gets World Aim to be like, absolutely no way on this good green earth am I about to get my guts, and they get absolutely speared. Well, they do manage to weave a good chunk of it. So Nasan is able to launch the Spirit Spear. Now I want y'all to remember, this one attack solos your favorite. No, I'm kidding, not your favorite verse. Like, if you're a Marvel fan, absolutely not. If you're a DC fan, absolutely not. If you're a JJK fan, absolutely not. If you're a Demon Slayer fan, absolutely. But still, very juicy attack. Wouldn't solo Sevendeadlysins verse either. But with it being the case, we see that once again, Worldane just keeps on with their fascination. They're like, wow, how fascinating. You've done it now, haven't you? I'm impressed. Oh, child of the Fairy King. But we see the Fairy King's like, don't you talk to my baby like that, I swear. As they say, I'm your opponent here, you filth! And proceeds to light up the Spirit Spear. Now he's able to control it, which is interesting. I guess before it's just because of the distance. Like, as long as he keeps the Spirit Spear close to himself, he doesn't have to worry about stopping it or manipulating it. Because notably, he doesn't show the issue of, like, being unable to stop it at all later on in the chapter, in spite of how hard he launches it later. But we see that King goes on an absolute tirade. He's like, I won't let you hurt my family anymore! Like on some Super Saiyan 2 Teen Gohan type beat. And we see Worldane being like, really? Are you sure you're built like that, for real? You really want to keep fighting? And honestly, I don't blame them for asking that question. Because don't get me wrong, right? King is still a monster. Like, especially considering this is a king who has his magic force sealed, likely still to a greater degree. Or no, he still has more magic to a greater degree than he did at the end of Sevendeadlysins, when he still had his mini wing self. Like, after he reverted from full wings king back down to small wing self, his wings are still much bigger than they were then. They are poking out of his back quite decently. They're like normal fairy-sized wings that we see on smaller fairies. So he likely still has way more magic force. So Worldane being able to bob and weave this king, especially as expertly as they do, like, look at this. King swings a miss. And Worldane's like, you should really avoid overdoing yourself with that body, Fairy King. You could destroy yourself. You don't want to do that, do you? And we see that King's like, don't count on it! I won't stop here! And proceeds to whiff a whole bunch of times against Worldane. Like, don't get me wrong. It could be revealed later that this King is nerfed down to, like, 1/10 of his true potential. Like, 100th, 1,000th. But, just based on the Spirit Spear that we're seeing, based on the force that it's launched with, based on all that, I still think this is an infinitely better feat than what Ironside had. Don't get me wrong, I do think Bond, definitely by the end of sevendeadlysins, and considering it doesn't seem like either of them are really trained, it's most likely that Bond is still the superior to King in terms of overall stats, like physicals and speed and stuff like that. But they still should be somewhat comparable, right? So, we have two examples of the four evils going band for band with a Chaos Knight. We had Bond doing it, absolutely molly-whopping Ironside. After Ironside had gone under no battle, no stress, no nothing, just Bond pulled up and was absolutely beating the taste out of Ironside, while nerfed to 1/10 of his potential, and Bond was nowhere near going all out. We have this King, who, I mean, he might as well be bloodlusted. Like, let's be for real. Like, I highly doubt King's magically holding back when Worldane put a hole in his kid, and is currently threatening the rest of his family and his entire realm. Presumably this is a bloodlusted King, going all out with his true Spirit Spear, and Worldane's just bobbing and weaving. I think enough time has passed. Ironside is the weakest of the four evils. Weaker than Pelgard, just based on, and hey, you may be like, it's bad to base off that one interaction, neither of them were using their magic, but hey, if you remember all the way back in like chapter 6, Ironside pulled out the sword, swung on Pelgard, and Pelgard was like, come on now, my G, you know you ain't built for this. Beltripe is notably described by Gother to just be insanely powerful, an unknown factor, but insanely powerful. So Beltripe is clearly built like that. And now Worldane is out here contending with and bobbing and weaving with a bloodlusted King. A nerfed bloodlusted King, but not so nerfed that the Spirit Spear went down to a lesser form. Bobbing and weaving all of that. Easily. Ironside, I think you're fodder, my G. Like straight up, I think you're fodder. But this just gets me excited to see when the four evils get to square off with their respective Fortnite, right? Like if I had to hazard a guess, each of the knights is going to have their respective four evil counterpart. So if I had to hazard a guess, it's likely going to be Worldane and Gawain, the two extreme magical mages with some sort of extracurricular abilities. They both have perfect cube, they likely both have absolute cancel, they have different abilities, they're going to square off. Obviously, it's going to be Lancelot versus Beltripe. They both seem to be just like the verbatim, cold, no-nonsense, strongest of their respective group with insane abilities. Like Beltripe literally like cut space itself, apparently. Or I forget if they like cut space. They did something crazy with their cut that didn't seem normal to Gother or anyone else there. Pelgard is interesting. I guess he's gonna be Tristan's opponent, because I don't see Pelgard being Percival's opponent, because Percival has to have Ironside, right? So Pelgard and Tristan is an interesting matchup. I feel like it's not as clear as the others, but I guess we'll see. I'm overall excited. When we get to see the four knights versus the four evils, I assume the four evils are going to get some sort of chaos amp or chaos buff, or they're going to be revealed to be like nerfed outside of Camelot or something like that. Some way or another, they're going to be buffed. So I'm super excited to see that. But Worldane just bobs and weaves everything King has to do, and then they're like, I really could. Honestly, I could do this all day, if you will. On some Captain America type beat. Oh, you don't know what that is. That's from a different universe. Don't worry about that. But I could do that. But I think this will suffice against your current state. And they just drop a perfect cube. Instantaneously. Before the Spirit Spear can reach them, they drop a perfect cube. And it actually stops. However, this does show something interesting. Perfect cube, if you remember, is meant to reflect all damage. All of it. Like the whole shebang bang. It's meant to reflect every bit of damage that would be done to it back onto the person who attacked it. But it looks like if you wield a ranged weapon, it doesn't actually do that. Because notably, with the force that King was launching this thing at, when it claims against the perfect cube, he should literally be torn in half. Like, let's be real. He's magically nerfed right now. His magical force was in the trash. He's already bleeding from just wielding the Spirit Spear. Like if it really worked that way against ranged weapons as well, the man should be in half. But considering he isn't, it looks like as long as you use a ranged weapon against the perfect cube, you're good. So, like, Galland, what happened with Galland when he got knocked back by perfect cube, he was using his halberd. but he clanged against it while still holding the halberd, so the recoil ended up hitting him. So if you want to beat perfect cube, just range attack it. Always range attack it. But with it being the case, we see that his kids are begging him to stop. Zana goes on to say, Dad, stop taking all that risk. And Zillion brings up the fantastic point that as long as he keeps going the way he's going, you're gonna perish if you keep fighting the way you are. But of course, King, Father of the Year, is like, I don't give a gosh darn! And we see that Worldane is like, what a sorry sight. Doesn't a hero know when to step away? Like, what, you ever been, how do I put this? You ever been talked to respectfully, disrespectfully? Like you ever been told something that you know is true in your core of cores, but like the way they deliver it, even if it is like constructive criticism or anyway, you can tell they're low-key insulting you. Like it's under their breath. Like it's a second, not like a backhanded compliment. Because I'd say that's different. That's a different phenomena. But just in general, like you feel it in your core that they're being mad disrespectful. That's Worldane to a T. To a T. Just the perfect example of like, oh yes. Oh, absolutely. Undeniably. You are not that guy right now, King. Me personally, I would step away simply because I would be built like that if I were you. But like, it's that high, like it's like looking down on someone. Like Worldane is speaking to King like he's a child. And like considering how old Worldane may be, if you think Worldane is one of the rare survivors of Elialuin, Worldane may actually be talking to King like a child. So, because remember, King's only 1700 years old. I say only, like that's a short time. But like, he was only born about like a little before halfway through the 3,000 year time skip. So he's actually pretty young, relatively speaking. But with it being the case, we see that King goes on to say, Sacred Tree, let me the power to pull their back out! And they proceed to Tyrant Tempest the perfect cube. And hey, don't get me wrong, the perfect cube does end up shattering under the force of the Spirit Spear. Right? That is still pretty crazy. But the Spirit Spear, if we just count the bangs here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and that's not even counting the different impact marks here. Someone else can count that. The perfect cube from Worldane takes a crazy amount of hits from the Spirit Spear. That's presumably launching at max power while being amped by King and the Sacred Tree, if the begging to the Sacred Tree actually worked here. That is crazy. The amount of potency. Remember, King was able to fight and do damage to the big man himself, to the prime Demon King in Zeldris' body, with one slash of the Spirit Spear. Just one slash of it. Sure, it wasn't much damage, but still, he drew blood. So the fact that King needs to wombo combo the perfect cube this much just to shatter it is absolutely insane. Worldane, different. Like, clearly. The second strongest mate in the series? Who knows? Maybe we need to see a Worldane versus Merlin matchup. You never know. But with that being the case, we see that Worldane asks, are you mad? Expending any more magic could be lethal for you. But unfortunately, Worldane underestimated King a little bit, because the Spirit Spear tears through the perfect cube and actually manages to land a gash on Worldane. They weren't ready for it to shatter, and they got split for it. We see the Spirit Spear straight boom through the throne and cause a little detonation here. And we see King, and as Worldane tumbles to the ground, King tumbles down too. And Tiori gives massive praise to her pops, as she's like, you did it, Dad! And Mortal's like, yo! Okay, well done, Pops! And Nasan's like, whew, thank the heavens. And he proceeds to let out a little sigh of relief. And we see Diane run up. And I'll talk about it in a second. Diane runs up and is like, wow, that was amazing, Nasians. How did you ever stop that spear? And we see that Nasians goes on to explain, oh, I'm not actually sure myself. There was this voice. I don't think I ever heard it before. But it echoed in my mind. And then the spear was frozen in place. And Tiori drops what is true, most likely. Oh, it was the Sacred Tree. I'm sure of it. Ain't that sweet. Like, it's weird to forget. Or it's easy to forget. But the sacred tree is sentient, at least to some degree. It's one of the gods. Like, we always think of the supreme deity and the demon king. It's like, oh, they're the two deities. But remember, while the supreme deity and the demon king were seemingly spawned in at full size, the fairy tree was born at the same time as them and planted itself and then became and created its own realm. It's a god too, so it's sentient enough too, and it's able to speak to its kids. So technically, depending on who you think was born first, if you think Nasan's was born first, or you think Lance was born first, Nasan's is hypothetically its first ever grandbaby. Like, obviously gave birth to all the fairies, and the fairies, obviously, you know, they've had kids. But in terms of the royal line, Nasan's and Lance are kind of the first. They're the first ever babies that the grandbabies that the fairy trees had. So this is probably something real sweet to them too. It's like, oh, my baby, it's doing so well. I can lend you power. Go ahead, take all the power you need. I love that. And we see that Diane says, truly though, thank you, Nasan's. And Nasan's like, oh, don't worry, it was nothing special. Nasan's, you could literally solo verses with that attack. If we could get a fraction of the spirit lent to you, bro. If we could get a fraction of the spirit lent to you, bro, we could run. I could do versus battles right now. I'll throw you against Demon Slayer right now. I'll throw you against the majority of JJK right now. I will throw you against My Hero Academia right now. Like, Nasan's, don't sleep. Don't sleep on your potential. But with that being the case, we see that Diane says, I wasn't able to do a single thing for you, but you still protected our family anyway. Now, initially, in the live reaction, which you can check it over on Patreon for as low as $1 a month, or become a member for as low as $3 a month to check out. It's a 25-minute live reaction. Pretty juicy. But with it being the case, we see Diane says, you protected our family. At first, I was going to be like, Diane, if you don't hurry up and accept that as your kid, King already did it. I think this is Diane, actually. Like, it's soft letting Nasan's know. If Nasan's didn't already figure it out. But I'm pretty sure Nasan's not stupid. Nasan's figured it out. But I think this is legit Diane being like, hey, you know, our family together, like, we are family. All my brothers and me. Like they know. This is Diane acknowledging and welcoming Nasan into the family. And I think that's sweet. Obviously, I've seen the critiques about it, and I can somewhat agree, but at the same time, I get it. Because of Diane's scale of attack. A lot of people were getting on Diane's case for just not doing it. And she'll continue to not do anything this chapter. I promise you. But, to be fair, Diane is not a good close-range combatant. You could definitely argue maybe she could have just leaped up there and just crushed Worldane, then got a little Droll's dance up, and then just ran and gone crazy in close range. But Worldane's a mage. They're very hard to deal with on that side of scale, and you do want to keep, King's role in the narrative. And unfortunately, Diane just, by Nakaba standard, was never that important or that powerful, unfortunately. So, I feel bad for Diane in the fact that she doesn't really get to cook in any sort of combat sense this arc. Once again, maybe the arc isn't wrapping up and maybe there's going to be another threat showing up. But Diane being reduced to nothing more than an Aussie Glazer, it's unfortunate. It's the same way I feel about Elizabeth and her treatment within the Leonis invasion arc. Yeah. Does it make sense that she stayed back at the castle? Not really. But still, fine. Enough. But she still is one of our main characters. Not one of the titular characters. She wasn't one of the Seven Deadly Sins. But for all intents and purposes, Elizabeth was the main character of Seven Deadly Sins. When Meliodas died, whose POV did we switch to? Elizabeth's, because she was the main character. And one of the main focal points. So it's really unfortunate that we didn't really get to see her fight. Does Diane have a massive family moment here? Absolutely. Her whole arc with Myrtle is beautiful. Beautiful. And I love that. And I love that we finally get to see Diane act motherly and do things that was never done for her. Actually getting to be a mother and be involved in her child's life. That's fantastic. But gosh darn it, there's a fight in manga. I want to see the big, strong, giant girl fight. Which is, it's something that's still possible. We can still see it later on. But, she literally has Gideon for nothing. She's holding it because it's nice to hold, I guess. She's not doing anything with it, which is so unfortunate. But with it being the case, we see King land, and he's like, whoo! Oh, well, look at me. I'm going to feel this. I'm going to feel this for life. Oh, man, my back. And we see him ask, is everybody okay? And we see, I think the scale's kind of off. Well, actually, not too much. I believe that's Zana asking, what about you, Dad? But there isn't too much time to ask that, because they're like, we're in trouble. Sixtus can't stop bleeding. And we see that King apologizes to his second eldest son and is like, hey, sorry, Sixtus. This wouldn't have happened if not for my mistake. And Sixtus is like, I don't mind, Dad. Honestly, it's my fault for misjudging my foe too. Which is, it's true. I got on King's case for that earlier in a previous review, and I do feel bad about that. Yeah, King nor Sixtus really knew what they were getting into with their respective opponents. So, it's not their fault. There was so much unknown information at the time. Worldain very specifically set them up for the okie doke. I'm not going to get on King nor Sixtus's case for that. But, with it being the case, King is like, well, don't worry. We're going to get you fixed up. La Droga de Yor will make it all better. And we see King stagger over, go to pick up La Droga de Yor, and Worldain reveals, you really think I'm not built like that for real, for real? You're a fool, Fairy King. And they stand up and get a good solid grip on La Droga de Yor. As they say, I'm not giving that to you, you know. And they lurch up like an undead creature. And we see them say, you think a mere scratch like this would be enough to defeat me? And we see all the kids get absolutely bamboozled as they realize, oh, Pops is cooked. And we see that Worldain goes on to say, you are cooked, as they raise a sparking blast. No Dragon Ball fighters. And proceed to aim at King, point blank range. And King just gives up here. He's like, she's got me. I'm cooked, and my wife won't be able to reach me in time. Boom! A big old Krakatoa. And we see Diane bamboozled. Everyone else bamboozled. And Nasan is like, let me go, please. And Diane is like, baby, go where? You're badly injured. And he isn't. Diane, don't worry about him. And we see that King, sweating, raising his guard, is like, oh, we still breathing. And Worldain's sparking hand is like, what? And Nasan, or King is like, huh? And Worldain is actually looking a little bit embarrassed, like, oh, I missed at point blank range. Nobody saw that, and proceeds to blast again, which is hilarious, as they say, what an utter humiliation. And I love how we finally get to see what's really kicking, as they whiff again, and we see everything start to fade and wobble, and they straight up collapse. And obviously King's kids question, what is going on? And we see that Worldain, as they lay there, are like, I am so confused. What is actually happening? And King retreats back and is like, I have absolutely no idea either, but I'm going to take your life regardless. And we see him summon the Spirit Spear, but it immediately starts to break down. He's clearly burned through way too much of his magic. Even with the Sacred Tree's help, his body's simply not built for this. And honestly, let me see. Are they still holding La Droga de Yor? Does King rip it out of their hand? No, they're still holding on to it. So that may be a mistake. Like, they go to absolutely annihilate Worldain while they're still holding La Droga de Yor. But Nasan comes in clutch as the Spirit Spear starts to fade from King's lack of magic being able to power it. And Nasan reveals they got a boundless magic pool, Loki, as they fly up and say, I'll lend you a hand too. And King goes, my baby child. Oh, you sweet, sweet baby thing. And they both right in the Spirit Spear, straighten that bad boy up, and they realize, did Nasan just... he flew up. And Worldain's like, oh, you again? Are we seriously doing this? And Nasan's like, you should have sent that out my way, Liji. As Nasan reveals, it's called Venom, Melagalland. A delayed action nerve poison that acts on your inner ears, drastically reducing your sense of direction, accuracy, and evasion skills. I placed the enchantment on the Spirit Spear when I fired it back at you. And we see that they realize, wait a minute, a poison enchantment? And Nasan reveals, whether you call it a scratch or not, you cannot evade the next attack coming. And we see that Worldain reveals, wow, I didn't expect it to be easy. But this is just so unexpected. Once again, even in the face of defeat, Worldain maintains that scientific mind. That, wow, I didn't expect you to be like this. I can't knock your hustle. Oh, next heir to the royal fairy line. And we see that child and father roar out and split Worldain right down the middle. And that's the end of the chapter. So overall... sorry, my shoulder still hurt. A W chapter. A W chapter. Obviously, I don't think this is the end of World 8. I don't think we're going to burn through one of the 4 evils this soon. Like, come on now. Especially considering they, so far, have the most interesting fighting style of the 4 evils. Unless Nakaba actively wants to make the series less interesting, we're not burning through World 8. If I had to hazard a guess, this is like a remote-controlled body, or a clone, or something. Like, this isn't actually World 8. I highly doubt it is. It explains their calmness, their lack of reaction, everything like that. This is presumably like some sort of copy or duplicate. We haven't seen Merlin Paul, something like that, but like, there are all types of mages and all types of magic in the sevendeadlysins universe. I would not be shocked if this was one of their abilities. And we've seen them use, like, cloning or copies or some variation of that before early on. So I wouldn't be shocked if this World 8 just isn't actually World 8. But overall, an amazing chapter. From Nasan's proper awakening to their utilization of the Spirit Spear and their magic enchantments, to seeing Diane and King fully accept Nasan's into the family, to seeing King's determination and World 8's magical prowess, all this chapter is straight gas. However, if you made it all the way to the end of this review, please leave forked, as in Forked, forked tip, TIP, in the comment section. Leave forked tip in the comment section down below. I'd like to thank you so much for watching. Please remember to leave a like, share, comment, and subscribe. Make sure you hit that little notification bell so you do not miss out on any videos that come to the channel. Also, I do have to have a Patreon down below where you support me for as low as $1 a month. You get things like exclusive videos, early content, and more. You also now become a member of the channel for as low as $3 a month to get the same perks and more. So those perks will include the live reaction to this very chapter, ad-free variations of all my videos, and if you become a $25 patron or a $25 member, you can order whatever video you want. Also, I do have a link to my Ko-Fi in the description down below where you can drop 5 beans for a short video, 25 beans for a long video, or any donation at all. Every little bit helps tremendously. But now, I'd like to thank you so much for watching once again, and I hope you guys have a wonderful day. This is That Guy with the Pencil, writing off. I'd like to give a thank you to our $3 members: Recliner Plays, Greyhound, Atkins Void, Astro, Eternal Flame, King Sukuna, NMA, Real Rare, Paris Arnold, and G Prosper. And I'd like to give a thank you to our $5 patrons: Steron, Sean, Sammy, Midnight Lord 21, Kevin, Encarnacion, Josh Brown, and A+A. And I'd like to give a thank you to our $7 patrons: Autumn Mornings Lazo and Fine. And I'd like to give a thank you to our $10 members: Robbie Uchiha and Jay Warrior. And I'd like to give another thank you to our $10 patrons: Panda Goat, Metal Solid Crisis, Joaquin Munoz, and Joaquin Munoz, along with Idemokami. And I'd like to give a final gargantuan thank you to our $25 patron, Calvin Elder.